Today, we're diving into a story about a tiny island that's right at the center of a massive international incident. It's all about oil, military power, and some incredibly high stakes. Let's get into it. So, the big question is, why? Why did this small, rocky island suddenly become the target of one of the most powerful bombing raids we've seen in the Middle East in a long, long time?
To really get it, you have to start with this number, 90%. What on earth could be so important about that single figure?
Well, that's the answer. 90% of all of Iran's crude oil exports pass through one single tiny spot on the map, and that spot is Kharg Island. It is, and this is no exaggeration, the country's economic lifeline. Which brings us to our first section. You're about to see exactly why people call this island Iran's economic jugular. Its importance to Iran's economy and to its military is it's almost impossible to overstate. So what is Kharg Island, really? I mean, if you look at a map, it's just a small island, about 15 nautical miles off the coast of Iran. But functionally, it's an absolute giant. This is the home of Iran's main terminal for getting its most valuable resource, oil, out to the rest of the world. And the island's secret sauce, really, is its geography. It's got this deep water coast that allows these massive, massive oil tankers to dock, which is something they just can't do on the shallower mainland. So the process is pretty simple. Oil gets piped from onshore, it's loaded onto these supertankers, and then they head out through the supercritical Strait of Hormuz. And where's most of it going? To its number one buyer, China. And here's where economics and military power really connect. This terminal isn't just funding the Iranian government. It's a huge source of cash for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. So what that means is any action against this island isn't just an economic move, it's a direct message to Iran's most powerful military force. And that critical importance is exactly why the island was targeted. But, as we're about to see, the story of the strike itself is really a tale of two completely different narratives. Okay, so from the US side, the message was all about overwhelming force, but with surgical precision. President Trump came out and said they totally obliterated every military target. Notice the emphasis on military. He even called the island Iran's crown jewel, which tells you just how significant the US considered this target. But Iran told a totally different story. Their officials immediately pushed back, claiming that nope, no damage was done to the oil facilities at all, and that exports were continuing just like normal. And just like that, you had an information war kicking off right alongside the military one. So let's just break down these conflicting claims. The US said it hit over 90 military targets. We're talking things like naval mine storage, missile bunkers, high-value stuff. Iran, on the other hand, did acknowledge some hits on places like air defenses and a naval base, but they really downplayed it, insisting there were zero casualties and that operations were not interrupted. This difference between the two stories really gets to the heart of the strategy here. You see, this wasn't about total destruction. It looks a lot more like a very, very carefully calculated warning shot. And that brings us to the key question that all the military analysts have been asking. I mean, with the power to completely cripple Iran's economy in a single move, why hold back? Well, it seems that decision was 100% deliberate. According to military analyst Justin Crump, the whole strike was a form of strategic messaging. By hitting military targets right next door to the priceless oil infrastructure, the US was basically showing what it was capable of. It was, as he put it, a way of showing it as being merciful, but saying he could be more punishing. It's a threat of what could happen next. And there's a really serious long-term consequence to think about, too. Actually destroying that oil terminal would be devastating for Iran's future. We know from history, after similar facilities were destroyed during the Iran-Iraq War, it took them years and years to rebuild. A strike like that today could set the country back for a generation and really harm the Iranian people. So this calculated restraint, it really points to the terrifying alternative, because if that oil infrastructure had been hit, the fallout would have spread way, way beyond just Kharg Island. Let's just walk through what was really on the line here. An attack on the oil facilities? You can bet that global oil prices, which are already high, would just skyrocket. It could easily trigger Iran to retaliate against its neighbors in the Gulf. You could see attacks on commercial shipping, and you might even see strikes on things like desalination plants, the places that provide drinking water for millions of people. The risk of this thing spiraling out of control is just immense. And Iran's response? It was not subtle. They put out a very direct threat, warning that if their energy infrastructure was attacked, they would immediately destroy any infrastructure belonging to companies that work with the US. The message couldn't be clearer. You hit our economy, we hit yours. So all of this leaves the entire situation on a complete knife's edge. The warning shot has been fired. The threats have been made. The question on everyone's mind now is, what's the next move? And recent reports are only adding to the tension. There's word that U.S. amphibious ships carrying up to 5,000 Marines and sailors are moving into the region. That has a lot of people wondering if the next step is going to be something more than just an airstrike. Which brings us to our final, pretty chilling question. After showing that it can strike this island whenever it wants, is the next step an attempt to actually seize it? To physically take control of Iran's economic jugular? That is the huge unanswered question hanging over this very critical corner of the world.